The Retribution Saga, Whispers of Valor. As the final preparations on HMS Retribution's launch deck were underway, Major Harrison Blake gathered his team leaders for a brief rundown. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the weight of the impending mission pressing down on everyone present.
"All right, listen up,"
Blake began, his voice firm and devoid of any unnecessary embellishment.
"We've got three main objectives once we hit the Vor'keth stronghold. First, create havoc. We need them distracted and disoriented."
He paused, ensuring he had the full attention of his team leaders.
"Second, plant the explosives. The demolition team has their targets. Precision is key. We want maximum impact, minimal notice. At least until it's too late for them to do sod all about it."
Blake's gaze then shifted to a small, unassuming device placed securely on the table in front of him. He picked it up, displaying it to the group.
"And third, intelligence wants us to plant this little doohickey somewhere specific inside their stronghold. Doesn't look like much, but it's critical. We get this in place and we do it quietly. It's a small part of a larger puzzle, so no heroics needed. Just get it done."
Captain Elias Mortensen, leader of the demolition team, spoke up. "Major, if I may, how sure are we that this USB drive plan isn't an unnecessary distraction? It sounds like a gamble given everything at stake." The room fell quiet, eyes shifting towards Major Blake awaiting his response. Blake met Mortensen's gaze, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he shrugged slightly, the hint of a weary smile on his lips.
"I understand the concerns, but we're soldiers, Captain. We follow orders and we make the impossible happen,"
Blake finally said, his voice steady.
"The USB drive's potential is an unknown, but it's not our job to question it. Our finest minds have worked tirelessly on this. Our job is to ensure it gets where it needs to go and does what it's supposed to do."
There was a pause as the weight of his words settled. The skepticism didn't dissipate entirely, but a sense of resolve took its place. They were a team, and trust in each other and the mission was paramount, even in the face of doubts. "All right then," Mortensen said, a firm nod signalling his acceptance. "We'll make it happen, Major." Blake nodded back, appreciative of his professionalism.
"That's the spirit. We each know our role, stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and we'll get through this. Dismissed."
With a final nod from Blake, the team leaders dispersed to their respective units, their mission's objectives clear in their minds.
As the air hummed with a mix of anticipation and the low thrum of jump ships powering up, Major Harrison Blake stood before his assembled task force, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the 50 Royal Space Marines under his command. Each one was clad in the sleek, matte black combat suits of the UKGF, their expressions proof, if needed, of the gravity of the mission ahead. "Ladies and gentlemen," Major Blake began, his voice cutting through the ambient noise with clarity and resolve. "Today we embark on a mission that is not just about retaliation or conquest. It's about demonstrating the indomitable spirit of humanity in the face of adversity. We've been handed a tough hand. Losing Jupiter Base was a blow, but it's one we will answer with the full might of the RSM."
He paused, allowing his words to sink in, his gaze locking with several of his troops, instilling a sense of shared purpose and resolve.
"The Vor'keth have mistaken our retreat for weakness, our losses for defeat. They're about to learn just how wrong they are. We've got a new trick up our sleeve."
He gestured subtly to Sergeant Webb, who held the discreet yet pivotal Phantom Veil device.
"This will get us in, but it will be your courage, your determination, and your will to fight that will see us through."
A murmur of agreement rippled through the ranks, the shared sentiment of resolve and readiness palpable in the air.
"Remember, we fight not just for revenge, but to ensure the safety of our homes, our families, and our future. We go in as shadows, we strike as lightning, and we return as heroes. Together we will turn the tide. For Earth, for humanity, and for the pints waiting for us back home. Let's show them what we're made of. To your ships!"
As the final words of Major Blake's speech faded, the Royal Space Marines filed into their designated jump ships, named with a touch of earthly humour that belied the gravity of their mission. The Drunken Engineer, the Sly Fox, and the Gallant Knight, each craft named after a favourite pub back home. Inside, the atmosphere was charged with a focused intensity. The jump ships, sleek and predatory against the backdrop of deep space, powered up their engines, the low rumble promising swift passage through the star-strewn void. The launch from the HMS Retribution was smooth, evidence of the pilot's skill and the advanced technology at their disposal. Outside the safety of their carrier, the vastness of space enveloped them, a stark reminder of the isolation and danger inherent in their mission. The task force's contingent slipped silently through the void, accelerating hard to reach the initial entry speed for the target zone. The target of their mission, a Vor'keth stronghold, appeared on the jump ship scopes, a menacing silhouette against the backdrop of a distant nebula. The station, bristling with armaments, was a fortress in space, its angular design and the cold, metallic surfaces reflecting utilitarian purpose and the martial prowess of its creators. Positioned strategically near a warp gate, it served as both a bastion and a choke point, controlling access to critical sectors of space. The defences of the station were formidable. An array of surface-to-orbit cannons capable of shredding a capital ship's shields in a matter of seconds, missile silos housing projectiles designed to track and destroy cloaked vessels, and swarms of drone fighters patrolled the perimeter, ready to respond to any threats. EMP, electromagnetic pulse mines, floated at key points, ready to disable any unauthorized craft that ventured too close. However, the most daunting defense was not its armaments, but its sensor net, a sophisticated array capable of detecting the slightest anomaly in the surrounding space. This net was the first and most critical barrier to their mission, one that the Phantom Veil promised to overcome. As the jump ships approached the outer perimeter of the defense net, the tension among the task force spiked. Every Marine knew that the success of their mission hinged not just on their training and their weapons, but on the Phantom Veil's ability to keep them hidden. Sergeant Webb, custodian of the device, watched the sensor readings with bated breath, his finger resting lightly on the activation button. The moment of truth was upon them as the silhouette of the Vor'keth stronghold grew larger in the viewports of the jump ships. The cold void of space was a silent witness to the tense minutes that followed. Webb's finger finally pressed down, activating the last piece of tech spewed out of the tech guy's labs. A ripple of energy pulsed through the ships, an almost imperceptible shimmer in the fabric of space that was their only shield against detection. The sensor net, a web of technological prowess meant to ensnare any who dared approach the stronghold uninvited, loomed ahead. The task force held its collective breath as the jump ships, now cloaked in the Veil's embrace, slipped through the outer edges of the net. The readings on Webb's console flickered, indicators of the sensor net scanning right over them without a hint of detection. A collective, silent sigh of relief passed through the ships as they continued their stealthy advance. Inside the Drunken Engineer, Major Blake stood behind the pilots, watching the approach on the main screen. The station, with its myriad of defences visible even from this distance, looked impenetrable.
Eyes sharp. The real test starts now.
His team, veterans of numerous skirmishes and battles back on Earth, understood the stakes, their faces set in grim determination, their minds focused on the mission at hand. As they neared the base, the defensive capabilities became even more daunting. Surface-to-orbit cannons dotted the station's skin like the spines of a formidable predator. Missile silos stood ready to unleash death, and drone fighters patrolled like swarms of protective insects. Yet, under the Veil's cover, the jump ships advanced undetected, proof that the boffin's work in the lab was paying off. The plan was for a quiet insertion, to breach the station's defences without raising the alarm. The task force was to split upon entry, the main force causing disruption and chaos to divert attention, while the demolition teams moving in the shadows would plant their charges at the critical junctures of the station. Webb, no more than just a technician, felt the weight of his responsibility, not just for the activation of the Phantom Veil, but of the success of the mission and the lives of his comrades. The jump ships aligned for the final approach, targeting a lesser-known maintenance hatch gleaned from stolen blueprints, their entry point into the heart of darkness. As the jump ships nestled into the shadow of a nearby asteroid, concealing their final approach, the Marines prepared for the pivotal spacewalk to the Vor'keth stronghold. The void's oppressive silence surrounded them as they exited their vessels, a stark reminder of the isolation and danger of their mission. Moving with the precision of seasoned operatives, they navigated the vacuum towards the station, their forms silhouetted against the cosmic backdrop. Major Blake, leading the charge, focused on the maintenance hatch that marked their entry point. The quiet was punctuated only by the occasional buzz of comms, linking them to one another and back to Sergeant Webb, who remained aboard the drunken engineer. Webb, stationed beside the now critical Phantom Veil device, monitored their approach. Although the device's cloak would shield their ships and initial entry from detection, its protection would end at the station's threshold. Inside they would be exposed, reliant solely on their training and wits. The hatch yielded quietly to their expert handling, a silent welcome to the enemy's domain.
Remember, we're invisible until we're inside. After that, we're on our own,
Blake reminded them, his voice a steady force in their ears as they floated into the station's dim interior. The doors sealed behind them with a soft thud, the sound marking their transition from the protected to the perilous. The station's interior sprawled before them, a maze of corridors bathed in the cold light of alien technology. Here, the Phantom Veil could offer no concealment. They were intruders in a hostile world, each step forward carrying the weight of risk and resolve. A Vor'keth patrol, their forms both alien and imposing, drifted perilously close, their sleek silhouettes cutting through the void with an eerie grace. These beings, encased in armour that shimmered with a metallic hue, moved in unison, a silent showcase of their disciplined militarism. The armour itself was a marvel of their technology, reflecting the starlight in patterns that seemed to shift and change, making them blend with the cosmic backdrop yet stand out with an otherworldly glow. Their helmets, if one could call them that, were elongated, designed to accommodate the unique physiology of the Vor'keth, a race whose sensory organs were not just confined to their faces, but extended over the top of their skulls, granting them a nearly panoramic view of their surroundings. This biological advantage made them formidable opponents, their field of vision nearly impossible to evade. Attached to their sides were weapons that seemed to be an extension of their beings, pulsing with an inner light that hinted at their devastating power. These were not crude tools of destruction, but sophisticated instruments of war, capable of unleashing precise bursts of energy with lethal accuracy. Even their movement through space was a display of their advanced capabilities, propelling themselves forward with devices that emitted no sound, leaving no trace, as if they were ghosts patrolling their domain. Their silence was not just a tactical advantage, but a psychological one, installing a sense of omnipresence, as if they could emerge from the void at any moment. The Marines watched from their hidden vantage point as the patrol moved with a purposeful cadence, their formations tight and efficient. Despite their menacing appearance, there was a certain elegance to the Vor'keth, a race so in tune with the art of war that every movement, every glance was measured and deliberate. Unbeknownst to these guards, they had just skimmed past a foe hidden in the shadows, a group of humans holding their breath, their fates momentarily intertwined with these guardians of the Vor'keth stronghold. In that brief encounter, the gulf between their worlds seemed both insurmountable and intimately close. A silent acknowledgement of the conflict that lay between them. The danger was real now. Every movement could betray them. Every sound, a potential alarm. The Marines' mission remained clear: to disrupt, to destroy, and to survive. Without the Veil's cloak, their path was fraught with danger, but they moved with the silent determination of those who had everything to fight for. Each corridor traversed and each challenge met brought them closer to their goal, their camaraderie their shield, their courage their weapon. In the heart of the enemy stronghold, they were alone but undaunted, symbolic of the spirit and tenacity of the Royal Space Marines. The Marines' boots were silent on the cold metal floors, thanks to a non-conductive, noise-dampening layer. This specialized material was designed to absorb sound and prevent any electrical signatures, ensuring their movement remained undetected within the Vor'keth fortress. That did nothing to stop their hearts pounding like drums of war in their ears. Splitting into their separate teams, they disappeared into the labyrinth, each group a whisper of shadow against the alien architecture. Lieutenant Ethan Harper's crew, tasked with creating chaos, slipped through the corridors towards the reactor core. The first sign of trouble wasn't a Vor'keth warrior, but the mechanical hum of defense bots. "God, bots!" Harper's voice was a sharp whisper over the radio. In the confined space, the clash was immediate and brutal, a dance of laser and lead. "Push through to the reactor," Harper urged, his words barely audible over the din of their engagement. Elsewhere, Captain Elias Mortensen and his team, laden with explosives, navigated the lower levels. Their mission was clear: place the charges and leave a ticking time bomb in their wake. "Contact," Mortensen breathed into the comms as defense bots rounded a corner. The team responded with trained precision, their movements a choreographed response to the threat. Major Blake, carrying the mysterious USB drive, led his group through the stronghold's defences to the central hub.
"We're in,"
he announced. The resistance fiercer here, underscoring the hub's importance. They fought for every inch, a relentless advance towards their goal. "Drives in!" came the call, clear and triumphant amidst the chaos. With their objectives completed, the real challenge began. Extraction.
"Regroup for evac."
Blake's command cut through the chaos, a lifeline for his scattered teams. Harper's team, navigating the confusion they created, moved with urgency. "Alpha moving," Harper confirmed, the reactor's impending meltdown a clock ticking in their ears. Mortensen's demolition team, their charges set, retraced their steps with a mix of speed and stealth. "Bravo's on the way," Mortensen reported, each word punctuated by distant explosions, their handiwork beginning to tell. Blake's team, the last to pull out, moved with purpose.
"Charlie's outbound,"
Blake signalled, the USB drive's work now left to fate. The extraction unfolded as a harrowing race against time. The fortress was alive with the clamour of alarms, every corridor and chamber echoing with the relentless pursuit of defence bots. Amidst this chaos, the Marines executed a symphony of disciplined retreat, their movements a blend of urgency and precision as they fought their way toward the predetermined extraction point. Amidst the gunfire and confusion, the grim toll of the mission became evident. Wounded and fallen soldiers were hastily evacuated to the jump ships, their comrades providing covering fire in a staunch rearguard action. The air was thick with the scent of ionized energy and the metallic tang of blood. Major Blake, leading by example, was suddenly struck by a searing pain in his shoulder, a wound delivered by a stray energy blast. Staggering from the impact, he gritted his teeth against the agony, determined to maintain command. It was then that the medic, a young corporal, rushed to Blake's aid, only to be cut down by a sniper's shot, his life extinguished as he knelt to provide aid. Blake, now with the corporal's blood painting his face in a grim mask, was consumed by a mix of fury and sorrow. With no time to mourn, he hoisted the medic's body over his shoulder, an unspoken promise that no man would be left behind, not even in death. The Marines, witnessing their leader's resilience, rallied with renewed vigour. Their efforts doubled as they covered Blake's painstaking progress. Every step Blake took was a middle finger to the pain that racked him, his vision blurred, not just from the blood that dripped into his eyes, but from the tears for the lives lost and the cost of duty. As they reached the extraction point, the jump ships waited, like silent sentinels against the backdrop of space. The remaining Marines boarded, their expressions a mix of relief and anguish, their gaze turning to Major Blake as he laid the corporal's body down, with a reverence reserved for the fallen. The jump ships powered up, their engines a low rumble of defiance as they prepared to depart the hellish landscape of the Vor'keth fortress. Major Blake, his shoulder wound hastily bandaged, took one last look at the fortress fading into the distance, a silent vow made over the loss and sacrifice witnessed this day. Back aboard the jump ships, the engines roared to life, propelling them away from the stronghold, now a ticking time bomb of chaos and destruction. As they docked with the HMS Retribution, the Marines' relief was palpable, tempered by the losses they'd endured. Their mission had been a daring plunge into the heart of darkness. The cost had been high, with a third of their force either dead or injured. Their injured companions, their lost companions, would be the subject of their toasts tonight.